In the year 1769, a brilliant French philosopher named Denis Diderot received a gift that completely destroyed his life. And the exact same psychological trap is quietly draining your bank account today. What started as a simple scarlet dressing gown eventually forced him to replace every single piece of furniture in his entire home until he was completely broke and miserable. You have almost certainly experienced this exact same spiral yourself when buying a new phone, a simple shirt, or even a basic piece of home furniture recently. There is a hidden psychological force operating inside your brain right now that makes a single new purchase trigger an avalanche of totally unplanned spending. Modern retail conglomerates spend billions of dollars every single year specifically to trigger this exact mental vulnerability, yet almost nobody ever sits down to explain how it works. I break down one powerful psychological concept per video in plain English so that you can protect your money. So subscribe right now and turn on notifications. Let us look at what actually happened to Denis Diderot, because his personal disaster reveals a profound truth about modern human behavior that you need to know. Before receiving that fatal gift, Diderot was completely content with his humble wooden desk, his old straw chair, and his worn-out threadbare clothes. But the moment he put on that luxurious scarlet robe, his brain experienced a sudden shock because his old possessions suddenly looked terribly cheap by comparison. He immediately replaced his straw chair with an expensive leather armchair, then bought a massive gilded clock, and replaced all his artwork until his savings were totally gone. He later wrote a famous essay titled "Regrets on Parting with My Old Dressing Gown," where he uttered the iconic line, "I was absolute master of my old robe, but I became a slave to my new one." In 1988, an anthropologist named Grant McCracken formally studied this behavior and officially named it the Diderot Effect in behavioral economics literature. The Diderot Effect dictates that our purchases are not isolated events, but are deeply linked to our fundamental desire for identity consistency and environmental harmony. When you purchase an item that strays from your current lifestyle baseline, it creates an intense feeling of psychological dissonance inside your mind. Your brain hates this friction so much that it instinctively forces you to upgrade everything else around that item to restore balance, even if you cannot afford it. Think about the last time you bought a brand new pair of premium white sneakers. Did you just stop there? Or did you suddenly feel like your old jeans looked completely out of place? Before I show you the most shocking tactic that corporations use to exploit this, which will fundamentally change how you view shopping, we must examine how your brain forms these product clusters. McCracken discovered that humans do not store items in memory individually, but in tightly bound mental groups called Diderot Unities. A Diderot unity is a collection of goods that fit together to represent a single identity, such as your working desk setup or your gym apparel. When you introduce a high-end item into an established unity, you do not just change your possessions, you disrupt your entire internal self-image. To keep that new self-image intact, your brain convinces you that buying matching accessories is not a luxury, but an urgent, absolute necessity. This is precisely why buying a new couch usually leads to buying a new coffee table, a new rug, and eventually painting the entire living room walls. What you must realize is that tech giants and retail companies understand this psychological flaw far better than you do, and they design products specifically to trigger it. Consider how tech ecosystems work today. Buying a sleek laptop makes your old headphones feel obsolete, which then makes your current phone feel sluggish and outdated. Fast fashion retailers deliberately release entry-level items at a loss because they know the Diderot effect will force you to purchase 3 matching pieces at full price. They are not just selling you a product, they are selling you a gateway key to an upgraded identity that demands constant financial maintenance. Stay with me, because what I am about to show you in the next 2 minutes is the part that changes everything about how you manage your money. Sociologist Juliet Schor analyzed modern consumer culture and proved that the Diderot effect is the primary driver of lifestyle inflation across middle-class households. When people receive a raise at work, they rarely save the surplus money because they immediately buy one upgraded item that triggers a full lifestyle cascade. A slightly nicer car requires higher insurance, expensive car washes, premium fuel, and suddenly a 20% pay raise leaves you with less savings than before. You become trapped in a relentless cycle of working harder to pay for items that were only purchased to match other items you did not actually need. Let us pause right here for a moment. Think about your own home and identify the single item that triggered your last major spending spree. Was it a new television, an upgraded desk setup, or a piece of smart home tech that suddenly demanded 5 additional compatible gadgets to function properly? Once you recognize that initial spark, you realize that your impulse spending was not a failure of willpower, but a predictable reaction engineered by behavioral psychology. Researchers at Harvard Business School found that consumers who experience an environmental mismatch score 40% higher on sudden impulse purchases. This psychological mechanism works so reliably because humans process visual disharmony as a form of social discomfort that must be corrected immediately. The moment you bring home an item that elevates your status in one small area, your brain assumes that your entire environment must match that elevated status. Marketers deliberately use the term entry-level luxury to describe products designed to act as Trojan horses inside your existing lifestyle baseline. When you buy a high-end wallet, you immediately feel ashamed of pulling it out to pay for cheap coffee or storing it inside an old, worn-out backpack. This psychological tension creates a snowball effect, where every new accessory justifies the purchase of another, even more expensive accessory down the line. The most dangerous aspect of the Diderot effect is that it operates completely under your conscious awareness, while feeling like entirely rational decision-making. You tell yourself that buying a protective case, a matching charger, and wireless earbuds are practical necessities to protect your initial investment in a phone. But in reality, you are simply serving the demands of the Diderot unity to maintain artificial consistency across all your personal possessions. Fortunately, behavioral scientists have developed 4 research-backed strategies that you can start using today to completely break this destructive cycle. The first strategy is the one-in, one-out rule, which forces you to sell or donate an existing item before bringing any new item into your house. The second strategy is imposing a strict 30-day cooling period on any purchase that threatens to disturb an existing cluster of items in your life. The third strategy is consciously adopting a baseline of sufficiency, recognizing that true utility matters far more than artificial aesthetic perfection. The fourth strategy is building intentional friction into your purchasing process by removing all stored credit card details from online shopping platforms. When you force yourself to manually enter your payment details every single time, you interrupt the automatic mental trigger before the cascade begins. Another powerful exercise is calculating the true cost of an item in hours of your life worked, rather than raw dollar amounts. When you realize that matching coffee table costs 20 hours of labor, your brain reevaluates whether that aesthetic harmony is actually worth your freedom. You begin to see that true financial control comes from breaking the link between your possessions and your core sense of personal identity. So let us pull this entire picture together so you never fall into this financial trap ever again for the rest of your life. Single purchases rarely exist in isolation because your brain craves consistency and will happily spend your savings to maintain harmony. Corporations deliberately exploit this Diderot effect by selling you anchor items that compel you to buy entire complementary sets. Lifestyle inflation is not an accident, but a direct consequence of allowing individual upgraded items to dictate the standard of your entire life. By recognizing this mental trigger the moment it happens, you reclaim total mastery over your spending decisions, instead of becoming a slave to your possessions. True wealth is not about owning a perfectly matching collection of goods, but possessing the discipline to say that what you currently have is enough. When you master this single psychological concept, you break free from the consumer treadmill and gain total clarity over your financial future. If this video opened your eyes, subscribe right now and share this with one person who needs to protect their hard-earned money today.